Well, welcome to the first edition of the Local Government Today program here on CTV television. My name is Paul Dingeman. We are glad you are along. There's been a need for a number of years for a program where local governments can come on and talk here on CTV about what's going on. What kind of projects have they got in the plans? Where are they at in those plans, and how it is affecting the communities? Let's begin today with a couple gentlemen who are working on a trails project throughout the county and specifically in the city of St. Clair and the surrounding townships. Joining us is Jim Bier from the Trails
St. Clair Trails Advisory Committee.
Long title. And a council representative, Mr. Tom McCartney, from
Paul.
Ward 2 here in the city of St. Clair, who has been on a committee for the Recreation Department about sidewalks and not sidewalks, but bridge to bay kind of
tying all this together.
Yeah. So let's begin, gentlemen. Jim, give us an overview of what's going on.
Well, Bridge to Bay Trail, which runs basically from Anchor Bay, New Baltimore area, all the way up to Lakeport State Park, 56 miles roughly, envisioned and started a little over 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and pieces of it have been in place and used, for example, along King Road or the route along the old railroad right away to Marine City from East China Park, sections headed up towards Port Huron and to Marysville, but there's a lot of gaps in that route. And there's even people who don't even know what Bridge to Bay was about anymore. Some things have happened recently. Some money has become available. Generosity from foundation, Ralph Wilson Jr. Foundation. Ralph Wilson was the owner of the Cleveland Browns and left over...
Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, Buffalo.
Sorry. Buffalo Bills, thank you. Left over $1 billion to be used in southeastern Michigan. Turns out that he spent time up in the Lakeport area, loved St. Clair County, and dictated that a certain amount of funds would go to St. Clair County and not just be spent in other parts of southeastern Michigan. Kind of pulled things together, and it looked like trails was one way to spend some of that money. Community Foundation, St. Clair County through Blue Meets Green initiatives focused on how to draw those funds into our hands. Some studies were done, and the focus has become, let's finish all of the gaps in the Bridge to Bay Trail.
Wow, that's a pretty big project. There's a lot of gaps. People are using the existing bike paths, and they're using them 12 months a year, really.
Yes.
They're walking, they're riding their bikes, they're running, they're doing everything. They've been really successful than what we have.
And as Tom knows, that segments that are within any city, the city takes responsibilities for those, correct?
Yes, we do. Yep.
And with collaboration from the city, we focused on what was considered the number one critical gap in St. Clair, which was how to get from the existing route along Kearney Drive to our economic center downtown. Because that is one of the keys in Blue Meets Green, is to now route the completion of Bridge to Bay through all the economic centers in our county. We're unique, really, in Michigan. You take Algonac, Marine City, St. Clair, Marysville, Port Huron, Lakeport, Lexington. All those communities are roughly no more than 8 miles apart.
That's right.
Nowhere do we have coastline communities in Michigan that are situated that tightly together. So utilizing this trail completion is looked at as a huge opportunity to draw tourism and to provide greater opportunities for recreation and enjoyment for our own citizens as well.
So the impact has become economic, which is good. A driver to get more people to come to the area.
Exactly. That was one of the keys to attract the funding from the Ralph Wilson Jr. Foundation. Their commitment is to provide 1/3 of the cost of new construction.
Wow.
For all the completion that's required, and we're looking to do this over the next 5 to 7 years is what our outlook is.
Wow, 1/3, that's a lot of money.
Yep.
And then you also get some money from the state too, don't you?
Again, the way the process worked here in St. Clair is we evaluated the recommended route, which took us down Clinton. Tom was part of that. As we reviewed it, City Council underwrote a preliminary study. We looked at different ways to get from west to east. We did end up selecting that Clinton Avenue route. We then pursued an MDOT TAP grant. TAP is Transportation Alternatives Program. Quite a bit of money is available around the state for that. It's very competitive. We submitted our proposal in the fall, December of 2019, and we were informed around June of 2020 that we were successful. So we moved into a final design stage, again with council's support, thank you. And we're in the tail end of that process now. And those drawings will be reviewed by city shortly and then go to MDOT for approval. With the MDOT funds and the funds from Ralph Wilson and some additional funding from Community Foundation, about 90% of the cost of almost $1 million project is being paid for
90% of $1 million project?
Yes.
That's marvelous.
Yes, 10% remains by the city of St. Clair.
Yes.
Okay. Tom, you've been on committees. The community needs it. They want it, right?
The community does need it, and the community wants it. We've spent a lot of time in the preliminary stages, and I was fortunate enough to be invited to be on it through being a council rep on the Recreation Committee, and reviewed the 4 different arteries, I believe it was 4 different arteries that would have connected the Kearney Drive bike path to downtown. And Clinton Avenue just makes more sense due to the fact that it'll bring traffic down the Clinton Avenue corridor to M29 and then north through downtown. So the bars and restaurants along Clinton Avenue, along Riverside, in the plaza, the stores, the shops, the parks, it just made more sense for that if people are biking or trailing, whether it's walking or biking, they're going to bike north. So we wanted that to impact the shopping district, the downtown, the restaurants, the bars, instead of backtracking and bringing it. If we brought it down Brown Street, people would have had to backtrack to get downtown. So the focus was, and part of the requirements were that it had to have some financial impact on the community, which bringing it downtown does. So that was the final design and final decision that was made to bring it down Clinton, and that was submitted. We're still waiting on, of course, the drawings and the final engineering studies, the impact it's going to have, and how they're going to snake it through the driveways and roads and intersections and things like that. But the beautiful part about that is engineering figures that out, and they'll bring that design back to City Council, or back to the committee, then City Council, and for our final approval. So.
But was it my understanding that you're not using any private property along that route? It's all
city.
What is called right-of-way?
Yeah.
We're working within the right-of-way. There are one small section that we may be looking at, working with some property owners, but the impact in those locations, we think it's something that would be able to be done cooperatively.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And so that will speed the process along then. When do you think you'll see shovels in the ground?
That's a Jim question.
We'd love to see it mid to late summer this year.
Would it be completed this year?
Yes, yes.
I've personal knowledge of the traffic on bicycles after the road diet came into effect along North Riverside, when I used to live there. And the increase in bicycles and the increase in people walking was dramatic. It was absolutely dramatic to see how people reacted to that space. They used it.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we're looking at, this is going to be a side path bikeway. Again, so it's a little different than the non-motorized sections that you're referring to along North Riverside. Side path bikeway accommodates all users, all levels. And it's probably going to see fewer of those high-speed bikers that you see going in that section on North Riverside. You're going to see more of what we typically see right now along Kearney Drive. You're going to see families. You're going to see single bikers going, commuting, going to the store. You'll see some people that are going through all the way, but if somebody wants to really make a high-speed route, they're probably going to stay in the roadway. I see that on Kearney right now, too. So people are in the roadway when they want to move fast. But walkers, runners, people with strollers, families, kids with training wheels still on their bikes, we're going to see a real increase in that. I also expect to see people who are on self-propelled wheelchair type
Right, exactly.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
Forms
Wonderful.
of transportation utilize that as well, because now they'll have width, smooth, no joints in concrete, and plenty of room for somebody to bypass around them.
You brought up a point, width. Talk to me about the width of the bike path.
The
Is
fact
it any
that
different than the one on Kearney Drive?
2 foot wider.
2 foot wider?
2 foot wider. It will be a 10-foot wide path that's dictated by the design standards that MDOT requires for alternative transportation routes statewide. Part of their funding requirement, we meet their standards.
Yeah.
The, some people are concerned, well, would you really need to go that wide? That's also a safety feature. I just explained the wide variety of users that we anticipate utilizing this route, and that gives a better bypass for people to get around each other, a little bit more room to move out of the way and still stay on the pavement. City will be clearing the snow in the wintertime.
Oh, really?
Which is another plus for the folks that live along that route and for the people that are going to use it. Right now, some people don't get out to clear their sidewalks as quickly as others, and you got to deal with that.
That's
in
a
the
real
future, the city will be clearing it.
advantage.
Yeah, the entire bike path
Tom remembers when they did all the sidewalks.
I do. The city did every sidewalk in the city at one point in time, but economics and times have changed. But
Right.
The key on Jim's point is that is absolutely correct. The maintenance, the snow removal, all of the maintenance, the snow removal around the entire bike path system throughout town would be cleared within whatever the time frame is. It's less than 48 hours now. I mean, as a citizen, I have that much time to clear my sidewalk. But the city's on top of those bike paths right away within hours of after the snowfall. So, I mean, I saw them out there again Tuesday morning when we had that snowfall, and they were already on the bike path. So that takes a lot of that away from the residents along. Now, whether that's a selling point to the residents that aren't keen on having this pathway, probably not. But it does take the maintenance and the snow removal and the edging and everything away from the residents along Clinton Avenue.
And people have a sidewalk now, a new sidewalk.
Correct.
In front of their house that doesn't cost them anything.
That's exactly right. It's a big point to be made that the sidewalk system, although it is improving around town, we are getting better at jumping on that. The handicap cutouts at almost every intersection has been taken care of, but this really does make a huge improvement to the entire sidewalk system in the city, and those who walk and ride their bikes or push baby strollers or try to get from Kearney Drive down Clinton Avenue today have many obstacles that are in front of them. I mean, through part of the surveys and questioning that has been done, there's a couple up on almost to the Kearney Drive section, and she's in a motorized wheelchair type. She can't get downtown today. They can't get downtown because of the sidewalks and the intersections and the driveways. Once this is done and engineering does submit their
She can
plan,
do it.
she'll be able to, along
Wonderful.
with everyone else that has those types of disabilities. So
Wonderful.
it's really a big bonus. It's a big plus, and it brings us into today. It brings the things that bring people to the community, to bring them downtown. It really does help us focus on that.
Well, we've got such a beautiful downtown with the park and everything down there. It's just great.
You're exactly right.
Jim, you mentioned, or you told me one time that this is just not a local project in St. Clair County. The state of Michigan has decided to have a bike path that will go from Fairhaven, New Haven, Fairhaven.
South Haven.
South Haven. I was in one of the havens.
Way across the other side of the
way
state.
across, way over here, all the way over to Port Huron, including coming to St. Clair and then going to Port Huron.
Correct. Really, the state already has established 4 what they call lake-to-lake routes across the state of Michigan. Lake-to-lake route number 1 is the one that runs from South Haven to Port Huron. It is already a dedicated route. It has advocates working to fill their gaps, but what they try to do is they join existing long-run trails into a logical pathway. The biggest piece that's close to us is the Macomb Orchard Trail that has a terminus in
Richmond, downtown Richmond.
Right,
yeah.
downtown Richmond, right. And currently the plan is that will continue down Division, which is Fredmore Highway, and continue along Fredmore Highway directly into St. Clair. So yes, this completion of Bridge to Bay is done with great amount of thought that it's also going to become a part of the Great Lake to Lake Trail. both the end and the beginning of that trail, or I should say the Lake Michigan side and the Lake Huron side, are established. There's a buoy mounted at Lighthouse Park. It was dedicated last June. That is the Port Huron terminus for the Great Lake to Lake Trail number 1.
One of the things that I learned at a meeting we had recently at City Hall is that the Lake to Lake Trail, we were fortunate to have people that were pushing to have Fred Moore Highway designated, which brings that into St. Clair. That would have not, it would have gone down Gratiot. It came across into Richmond and down Gratiot into Marysville and up to Port Huron. St. Clair wasn't even being considered at that time. It is now. So this piece that we have that we're talking about today between Kearney and M29 will only play a bigger part of that process once that lake to lake is done. So
Right.
That's something that a lot of people in St. Clair don't realize, that lake to lake will really help St. Clair a lot by bringing more focus, more people, more visitors, more home sales, more business opportunities to St. Clair.
And I remember over the years.
Did I overstate that?
No, that's right.
Jim,
Exactly
maybe
right.
you can talked about it. There used to be a group of bicycle people who would come across the state and go to St. Clair High School, and there'd be a couple hundred cars. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's a group out of Macomb County, and they still come to the area. They haven't come to the high school for a few years. It did get canceled this past summer. I think they've been.
Well, the world got canceled.
The world got canceled.
All except for Tom's activities.
But yeah, there's I'm also sitting on a regional trails committee that countywide, and that's one of the groups that we're endeavoring to stay in touch with to help us, promote use of the Bridge to Bay Trail, and I can add a little bit more of what's going on countywide if I got a moment to do that. I mentioned the gaps. We're closing this one gap. Well, there's other gaps within the St. Clair area. For example, how well defined is a route going on M29? Well, we continue to work with MDOT, both north and south of the Pine River, to improve a designated bike route on M29 and to increase both the awareness and the safety of that. There's a lot of signage that is in the works as well. But when you look up to north to Marysville or south to Marine City, there's gaps, and they've been assigned kind of priorities in different phases. Marysville and Port Huron are in what we call phase 1 along with St. Clair. St. Clair is just a couple of steps ahead of the rest of them, but Marysville is looking, and they currently have grant requests in also to MDOT for TAP grants to do the section from Boucher and Davis, where there is already a route on the west side of Boucher tying into St. Clair Township. And so go down Davis to the river and to the point where you've got the one-way traffic coming down River Road. And then that section of River Road all the way back to Marysville Park, looking to improve that with also a side path. So working with the residents along there to create an improved dedicated bike route along with the route that's in there right now for one-way traffic. Those are grants that we expect to hear from within the next couple of months. Likewise, Port Huron has a number of improvements, most of them kind of focused on the north end of town. But the most exciting feature in Port Huron is a proposal to put a bridge across the canal and really connect the campuses of Port Huron Northern and Holland Woods Middle School.
Wow. Okay.
And then to create trails that connect through that area out to Pine Grove and back to Gratiot.
So what's the next step for the public to watch for?
The next step for the public to watch for is these drawings that come up for review in the city of St. Clair. There will be a hybrid meeting, both in person and Zoom, scheduled for Thursday, February 11th. So watch for the announcements coming from the city and opportunity to have input on that. Drawings should be available at City Hall for review prior to that time. And citizens have any comments or concerns or simply want to take a look, that would be the first opportunity to do that. If there are adjustments that need to be made to plans at that time, the engineer will take that under advisement. Those drawings then go to council for resolution to pass on to MDOT. Once that is complete and MDOT gives final approval, we're moving towards construction, bid and construction.
Tom, any final thoughts?
I do. I just have some items that I want to bring up about support and approvals. You know, the city of St. Clair and the St. Clair City Council adopted their new master plan, and the Clinton Avenue corridor has been part of that master plan. So the recreation plan, the master plan for recreation has already been adopted, and the Clinton Avenue bike path is part of that. The departments that have been involved in the advisory was the Recreation Commissions from St. Clair, the Planning Commission, the St. Clair Trail Advisory Committee, the St. Clair Police Department, Tim Raker, Police Chief, and some of the other officers have been highly involved in this on a safety aspect, traffic and that type of analysis. Letters of support have come from the St. Clair County Metropolitan Planning Commission. They played a big role in advising the trail advisory on that. Friends of the St. Clair River, the Community Foundation of St. Clair County. There's been over 150 signatures collected from residents who use the trails, use the bike path around
Wonderful.
town. That were solicited by people outside of the committee. So, and as Jim alluded to, the funding, Michigan Department of Transportation is 60% match. Community Foundation of St. Clair County, combined foundation of 30%, and a Ralph Wilson Jr. Foundation. And I would be remiss to say this, is that the city of St. Clair is very fortunate to have Jim Bier. He serves on a few commissions and committees in St. Clair, but he just knows and dives into these things. So it's not a shallow, I'm kind of sitting here as an outside supporter, as someone that's been not intimately involved, but have been involved in it enough to be able to talk about it. But Jim and Therese Hawkins have really, anybody that has any doubts about what's going on or has any questions, I would say please attend the meeting in February, the public meeting. Jim is a wealth of knowledge and is so, it's a pleasure to work with him on some of these committees. It really is. We worked on the light ordinance together. It took us a few months to get that down, but the sign ordinance. The sign ordinance in St. Clair.
More than a few months.
And I got to be, got personally involved with that as a council member. I was on that committee, but without Jim being focused with that, he really has the knowledge of this thing and has really brought this thing together. So I thank him for that, and I really advise the community when you get the dates, when we have that tied down, please attend. Please come in and attend and bring your question, whether you're for it or against it. Please come in and listen and talk.
Good. Jim, any final thoughts?
Just another initiative I mentioned briefly is signage. That's something that Therese Hawkins has been working directly on as a committee member. This flows out of our county-wide effort. Again, there was some grant money that came from Wilson Jr. Foundation to really create a wayfinding, consistent branding for Bridge to Bay Trail. The signage you're going to start seeing going up as the construction takes place, and it will go on existing sections of the trail. It's going to follow what we call kind of the same format as a subway type signage. If you've been to New York or anywhere else, you just kind of see a linear route. Well, our route is all curvy and so on, but being able to read that sign, know where you are, anywhere on the route. There's going to be trailheads. Right now, the trailhead at Gregg Park, a minor trailhead at Skateboard Park, a trailhead across from the plaza at Palmer Park. These will be informational kiosks and help advertise the destinations along the way, so to speak, and the attractions that you can find along the trail.
Great.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you both, gentlemen.
Thank you.
A lot of information, and we thank you for tuning in to our first show on local government today. Thanks for watching. I'm Paul Dingerman.